Hello everyone and welcome to Tom's Tomb of Horror. I hope you're doing good and well. So it's time for a brand new list on the channel as I rank 9 of my favourite not final characters in horror. And you might ask, what do I mean by not final? Well, these are characters that didn't quite make it to the end of their respective films because they were either killed off or they died before those end credits rolled. So as I talk through this list, I'll try and justify each one of my choices and why I've included these characters on this list. And I will say something that came up regularly was that these characters quite often have flaws, imperfections about them, which I think is what makes them all the more interesting, and it gave me more reasons to include on this list because it makes the characters sometimes relatable, it serves the story or the narrative really well, and just gives the films extra colour, something more exciting maybe about it as well. So these are characters that I think really perform important roles in a lot of these films, and it's why I've chosen them for this list. Another thing to say is actually a couple of characters that I've chosen are from pretty recent films on this list, and I did that to sort of maybe generate a bit of debate and to be topical for the current year that we're in. And lastly, if you're new to the channel, do drop a like and a sub. It supports everything that goes down here at the Tomb. And otherwise, without further ado, let's start with my first choice here, my number 9, which is going to be Sarah from Obsession, the recent huge indie horror hit directed by Curry Barker. And I think that Sarah is a really likeable character. She's good-natured, she's kind, she's caring, she has humility. I also think she has moments of touches of humour at times in this film as well. And what's really sad and tragic about her character arc is I feel like she's the innocent casualty of this entire story, really, because she, spoiler alert, there will be spoilers throughout this video, by the way, she is brutally murdered by demonic Nikki in demon form, of course. Which is as a result, I think, of the One Wish Willow story. And what's interesting is I think whilst a lot of people have been saying Sarah was the better choice for Bear, she was the better match, I would point out that Bear's character takes a really dark turn. He makes some very dark choices in this film, which I think, some might argue are because of the circumstances, which are, frankly, somewhat terrifying. But Bear does not handle that situation at all, and I think he makes some very dark and bad decisions throughout the film that kind of make him more the villain of this whole story. And I think, therefore, that Sarah really was too good for Bear, ultimately, and she was potentially, therefore, kind of my favourite character in this whole film. Played really well, I think, by Megan Lawless too. So yeah, Sarah from Obsession is my first choice here, coming at number 9. Next up at number 8, I've gone with another recent character from the film Primate, the creature feature directed by Johannes Roberts. This is Hannah, who is played by Jessica Alexander. And she sort of starts off as this, some might say the annoying type of party character. She kind of almost interfering with the arrangements of the main character, the protagonist in this film. But I really like her arc in this film, the way she develops, and she becomes like one of the characters with one of the wiser heads on her shoulder. I think is this film, one of the more sensible ones in this character, making some of the better calls, being the one that seems the most naturally fearful of the chimp, and having one of the more cynical kind of reactions, and sort of being one of the more kind of the ones to show actual genuine, fear and sensible kind of anxiety about this chimp in this film, Ben. And I just think I'll also say I like that personality that she has, even at the beginning of the film, because I think actually if we're talking parties here, you don't want the parties. I always feel like a really good party has to have someone that has a slightly outgoing, extravagant, slightly wild element about their character. Otherwise, the parties can turn out to be very bland, very vanilla. So I kind of think every party needs its Hannah. Every party needs Jessica Alexander's kind of Hannah character in it, I think, just to give it a bit more excitement. I think she brings that, obviously. But what's all the more impressive is she shows how her character develops and deals with the whole Ben situation in this film so well, and it kind of makes her character grow on you positively rather than negatively. And it's just, I think she really brings something to Primate that is interesting and colourful. And also a brutal ending for poor Hannah as well in this one. I think quite a few of these characters come to really quite brutal endings, which kind of gives them that sort of tragic curve too. And that's the case with my next choice at number 7, which is Olivia Castle from Final Destination 5. I mean, what a kind of has given us all fear of eye surgery, I think, in particular, this one. But what I love about Olivia's character is she she's this sort of sassy badass character at times with these very cheeky, very sharp one-liner retorts in lots of moments of this film, which I really like her for. But I like her even more because she does show that vulnerable side. Ultimately, when she's having the eye surgery, she's kind of cuddling. I think it's a teddy bear that she's cuddling, if I remember rightly. It's been a little while since I saw Final Destination 5. I really love Olivia's character. It's different sides and aspects that you really warm to her by the end of this film, even up to the point of her iconic, untimely death. Another great film, and that's why Olivia Castle comes in at my number 7. At number 6, I've gone for a bit of a hero here. I mean, really almost a hero in the purest sense. He makes the ultimate self-sacrifice in this film. This is Sergeant Doyle from 28 Weeks Later. And he is a really courageous, really brave military type of character. And the decisions he makes throughout this film are, not easy ones he has to make, because he is essentially, like I say, risking his own life at so many points here to protect Tammy and Andy, the children, and Scarlett as well, played by Rose Byrne in 28 Weeks Later. And ultimately, he makes the ultimate sacrifice. He ends up, in an absolutely kind of being burnt alive, incinerated, as he is pushing the car with Rose, Tammy, and Andy into safety. He is incinerated for his selflessness, and he's, I think, a really strong, really great character from 28 Weeks Later, which is why he's made this as at number 6. Coming in next, jointly, I'm going to have to join these together at 5 and 4, and I'll explain why. They are an odd pairing. I'm fearing calling them a couple because they're not really a romantic couple, I would say. Shelley Finkelstein and Vera Sanchez, I'm talking about here from Friday the 13th Part 3, who have a really interesting dynamic that I felt was unexplored fully, or not fully explored, in Friday the 13th Part 3. It had so much potential for me. I liked the contrast that these characters had as well. Shelley kind of his fun prankster, sort of his silly nature, and the way that contrasted with, I think, Vera's slightly more sensible head, and her sort of more down to earth type character. And I felt that the two were really an interesting pairing, even though they were brought together just as a blind date and a circumstance by their friends. But I felt like it would have been more interesting to see where this went, this relationship, in Friday the 13th Part 3, and it might have actually made Friday the 13th Part 3 better for me. Not that I dislike it, it's actually one of my favourite Friday films, but I feel like there was more potential with this pairing than the couple of Chris Higgins and Rick. I actually would have preferred to see Vera and Shelley just developing, even if it was just a friendship, because I don't think it was going to ultimately become anything romantic, but even as a friendship developing towards the end and facing off with Jason, I thought that they would have brought something more interesting to those last scenes, more of an interesting dynamic. And perhaps comedy, and a little bit of a more interesting climax ultimately, right, to Friday the 13th Part 3. That ultimately, I think the film, it just felt like it was unfulfilled potential there for me. And when Vera is actually looking at the photo, I think of Shelley. I think it's his mum. I'm not 100% sure at the end. The photo with Shelley, and your heart feels quite like it's warming to both of these characters at that time, and then suddenly everything is cut off because they're both killed. But there was something in that I really liked, even though it wasn't probably going to become anything romantic. I just liked how that relationship was blossoming. Coming in at number 3, I've gone for a character from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, another Part 3 here from a big franchise. I've gone for Taryn White, who I think, she... Another character that's dealing with, sort of has the drug addiction history. She's also dealing with, or has dealt with harassment as well. And yet she is very strong. She's very spirited. And I think the thing that stands out for me often when I think of Friday A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 is how she faces down Freddy, and how she's really brave. Also how she tries to, defend her friends as well in this kind of situation, despite everything that she's had thrown at her in her life. I think is remarkable, shows so much resilience, and it's particularly cruel the way she's killed off for me. That kind of really makes me even more empathetic or sympathetic for Taryn. It's just that it's so brutal. I mean, Freddy will be what Freddy is, a nasty, character playing on everyone's fears and anxieties. That's Freddy Krueger for you. But it's just a nasty, really unpleasant way for Taryn to go. Really undeserved, I think, with so much of her fight and resilience that she shows throughout A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. So she's my number 3. Coming in next to number 2, I've got to admit, an all-time favourite for me. This is Parker from Alien. And then he's another one with a great character arc in this film. You know, he starts off as this sort of jokey, kind of silly, you know, he's kind of complaining about, you know, his pay with Brett in a lot of the early scenes in this film, as I remember. And the thing with Parker, though, is that he is a strong character. You know, this is the guy that faces that alien one-on-one as well at the end. I know he's never going to beat the xenomorph, but, you know, he's brave. He tries to save Lambert. He does actually manage to help save Ripley in the face of the psychotic Ash completely going complete psychopath as he realises he's losing control of the situation. Parker really helps Ripley sort out Ash. And I just think, you know, I love his arc. I love that he's so bold and so brave, yet he's still trying to be the good guy, you know, by the end of this film, and really trying to serve the greater cause and help Ripley and Parker try and survive. Ultimately, he doesn't make it. Yet, I love Parker since I first saw Alien. Lastly, we are talking my number 1 favourite, not final character, I suppose you could say supporting character, right? This is Gibb Smith from Freddy vs. Jason, who, for me, embodies the sort of that kind of flawed, imperfect character, right? But with so much spark, so many extra dimensions about her. You know, she's playful, she's fun, and she uses her humour, I think, to face up to her, like, you know, almost facing her own, like, the darker aspects of her character. You know, she's sort of admitting she has them, and doing so with humour, showing that she has this still this positive side to her character, this fun side that she's never going to lose. She feels like this character's never going to lose her spirit no matter what. And I feel like you see this right up until her untimely death in Freddy vs. Jason. I love it when she replies to Kia early in the films. They're having this conversation about the fact that she's smoking when she's drinking. Gibb Smith says, "I only smoke when I drink now." Kia replies, "But you're always drinking." And then Gibb Smith simply says, "Yeah, well, I'll work on that next." And there's lots of these moments as well with her boyfriend, where she's sort of admits she can't really justify why she likes him, except she says, "Oh, he's got a cute arse." It's quite a funny moment as well. And another great character, one of my all-time favourites, I think possibly my all-time favourite, which is why I've included her at number 1. I think Katharine Isabelle is fantastic in almost everything I've seen her in. I think she's always a really a true horror queen in every sense of the words, if you can put it that way. And yeah, so that's my list here. 9 of my favourite not final characters. Let me know what you think of this list in the comments. I look forward to hearing from you. Otherwise, until next time on The Tomb, it's bye for now.